I'ma break your sword. I'ma break your nose. I'ma break your park. I'ma break you. This is the intro song to the podcast King of the What Now. Join us as we go on a journey, going to talk about pirates, battle and adventure. We think we're pretty funny. We hope you will too. Luffy, he's gotta be the king of something. We weren't really listening. Sorry about that. Hopefully, he'll achieve his dreams. Yeah. Hello, fellow adventurers of the Grand Line. Welcome to episode 22 of King of the What Now. We're here to discuss the anime One Piece. I'm your host, Joel. What?
You weren't done.
Alright, good of you to decide whether or not I was done or not. You're correct, I was trying to think of something, and the best I could come up with was, hello, I'm your host, Joel. If you're wondering how I am, and you've been on the show before, you'll be receiving a newspaper, and you will realize that your life has been made better or worse by my appearance in your life.
I'm Curtis, the co-host.
The back of your head is visible in the newspaper article about me, as well.
Well, yeah, that's my better side. They caught my good side.
If anyone were to capture your eyes, both of them on camera without any kind of lens or anything in the way, people who looked at that camera would have their souls sucked into it, and that's just not good. You're not about soul sucking, so you always try to make sure that at least partially covered. Okay, so we just finished the Arlong Park arc, which involved 4 episodes. If I tab over to the correct... oh no, I closed the episode list. It's the next 4 episodes. Okay, here we go. We finished episodes 42, 43, 44, and 45.
Yes.
Which is the end of the Arlong Park arc and a little bit of in-between arc goodness that's going on.
Joel.
Yes.
The anime episodes we're at are now double the episode of our podcast.
Mm-hmm. And we've been doing about 4 episodes per podcast episode, so it's very likely eventually it'll be quadruple the episode that we're on.
I'm excited.
Yes. If you're the sort of person who gets really excited about numbers, and that might sound like I'm making fun of you, I'm not. I get excited about numbers. Be sure to watch out for those mile markers.
Just wait until episode 25.
Ooh, that's going to be so good. Okay, so we need to summarize these episodes, and I think that it's going to be hard for you to pad it out as long as you sometimes did earlier in the podcast with how detailed these episodes were.
Those are my notes. I didn't even take notes for the last 2 episodes, Joel.
4 bullet points for 2 episodes, and then nothing for the next 2 episodes, which is great.
Okay. What listeners need to know is that Luffy finished off Arlong. They duked it out a bit. Luffy broke Arlong's teeth, and he kept regrowing them. They ended up inside of the building, which I'm not sure if Arlong Park is the building or the area, so it doesn't really matter. And they end up in the room that Nami's maps were in, right?
Yes.
And Luffy starts destroying everything, throwing out the window, right? To kind of... It's a symbolic thing for Nami to move on. Because it was all stuff that she had done in servitude to Arlong.
Correct.
And then he destroys both the building and Arlong all at once in one giant attack.
Destroys Arlong. Arlong is no longer alive. Okay. He's been destroyed into smithereens.
He destroys the building and defeats Arlong in one attack.
Mm-hmm. He found out that the Arlong Park structure was actually Arlong's lifeblood, and so if you destroyed the structure, no. That would be kind of cool, but it wouldn't fit into the world of One Piece very well.
Yes. So now everybody's celebrating, and we have a lot of, tying up loose ends on the island. There's a big party with lots of meat and alcohol. And eventually they load up the ship and they go to leave. And Nami has left the full 100 million berries that she collected behind. I don't know where the last 7 million came, because she was at 93 last we heard. But
she was going to have 100 mil. Oh, you're right. She was short.
She probably got it from Arlong Park.
It could be.
Anyways.
She checked under his mattress, which has been destroyed.
Yeah. So she collects all of it, right? And puts it in one... leaves it all in one place.
I made that joke, yes.
And leaves it for the village and says, this belongs to the island. And she leaves a note that says, "Don't worry, I'll steal more." So as the ship's leaving, the ship's sitting here at the dock. And I'm sorry, this is longer, but this is a great scene. I just want to talk about it for a second. She comes up and she yells at them, "Get ready to set sail." And then she starts running, and everybody's like, she's trying to get out of here without saying thank you or saying goodbye. What is this? And she's running through the crowd, and they're trying to stop her. And then she jumps and is on the ship. And then you find out she pickpocketed everybody in the crowd. So she left them 100 million berries and then stole everybody's wallets and purses on the way out.
Which may have also, I don't know what kind of photo identification they have. It's not current times.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there might have been important things in their wallets. It might have been better for her to just keep the money and let them keep their wallets. But, you do you, Nami.
I think they probably still came out on top, the villagers. I mean, 100 million berries. There's no way they had a collective 100 million berries in their wallets and purses.
I would agree.
So that's the end of the first 3 episodes. Then we have like an inter-arc episode where they get a newspaper delivered to them by Seagull because One Piece. And Nami's going through the newspaper and a wanted poster falls out. And it turns out that Luffy is now wanted, dead or alive. And the bounty on his head is 30 million berries. Yeah. And then there's a bunch of like flashing around to different islands, and they're just showing how different people they've met are reacting to his success, quote unquote, as a pirate. And then I don't know if it's the last scene, close to the last scene, is Mihawk landing on an island with the poster to show it to somebody, and the person he shows the poster to is Shanks. And then they drink in celebration.
We definitely need to circle back and talk about that. Mm-hmm. Okay, and does that cover all of the stuff that you want to do? Okay. Perfect. Now, I would say that there is a little bit of nuance to the battle. I know we discussed this off camera and you didn't want to give a play-by-play. I agree that that's kind of boring. But I will say the fishmen are made stronger in the water. So I guess the first part of the battle is he's using his teeth. And he goes, check it out. This is how strong my teeth are. And he's crushing rocks with his teeth. And Luffy goes, I can punch rocks. And he demonstrates. And so they start fighting. And they keep reiterating that if you get bitten by these, it's going to be bad. And at some point, Arlong grabs his arm. I'm trying not to give a play-by-play, but this is really cool. Instead of trying to pull away, he decides to use the fact that Arlong can't let go to slam him into the ground. And Arlong starts to bleed, which is pretty impressive, I would say, considering he's supposed to be this superior fisherman. Luffy breaks the teeth, and it turns out that so much in the same way that Hachi can shoot ink because he's an octopus fisherman, in the same way that Karubi can he has a ponytail that he was able to wrap around Sanji. I believe that specifically comes from his manta ray blood, maybe. And the same way that Chu can shoot water out of his mouth because of whatever type of fish he is. Arlong has the traits of a shark, and sharks' teeth grow back if they get broken, and they come back stronger every time. So that's something that was pretty cool. Luffy smashing him into the ground was pretty cool. At some point, he eventually realized that he needs to take Luffy a little bit more seriously, so he jumps in the water and he's able to use his superior swimming speed and his sharp nose, which we didn't cover this, but was strong enough to stop Zoro's swords in the last couple of episodes we watched. He launches himself like a freaking torpedo, and Luffy just has no defense against this the first time, and he's jumping around, he's dodging, he's like, oh no, if I get hit, this is gonna be really bad. And eventually he figures out that he can use his fingers like a shield, and he's able to slow Arlong enough that he's able to get out of the way.
Yeah, I didn't get that. They didn't really show it that well, so I was confused how his fingers helped.
Sure. I agree. I think yeah, he basically was able to find a way to beat the attack, I guess is the more important thing, which causes Arlong to have to rethink his strategy again. First he used the teeth, and then he used I think it's called Sharks on Darts is the name of the attack. And then he pulls out this wicked saw blade that it's basically the sword version of his nose, and it's this big, long, like 6-foot-long blade it looks like. And he starts slashing, and Luffy starts jumping up the tower, like you pointed out. And then he ends up in Nami's room, and I need to take a moment to talk about this. Luffy's looking around, he goes, what's this room? And Arlong goes, this is where I made Nami make her maps. I'm so evil. And Luffy's looking around, and he sees a pen that has blood, a quill that has blood on it, and he goes, you made her stay in here. You forced her in here against her will, and I guess Luffy didn't realize how bad Nami had it, because you can see his gears kind of like slowly turning. And at some point, Arlong holds this sword to his throat, like, if I move even an inch, I'll kill you. And Luffy grabs the sword and just breaks it. From a sitting position, he has no leverage, but he's mad. And he stands up and he breaks Arlong's nose with his bare hands, which is awesome. And then he delivers a kick. They're on like the 5th story of this building, directly into Arlong's back and smashes the rubble. And he emerges from the rubble and he loudly declares, Nami, you are my friend. Or, Nami, you are my crew member. I've seen different translations, but it's that idea of, you're one of us, I protected you, I got you. And it is a really good scene. It's used in a lot of AMVs, and it really is kind of the climax of many, many arcs, because Nami's the only one who didn't have her arc resolved the same arc she showed up. We had a long time to kind of get to know her and such. And yes, the Marines were going to take all of the money, but Nami and Zoro beat the crap out of that mouse guy who is friends with Arlong, and that's the reason why they have the 30 million berry bounty, is because he gets so mad that they disrespected him. And now Luffy is worth 30 million, and Usopp, the back of Usopp's head is also shown in the corner of the wanted poster, and he's very proud of that, which is... Usopp is an interesting guy. He's both ends of the extreme. He sometimes is super afraid of even a single Marine officer, but in this case, when he should be afraid that people might be after him, he's actually really proud, because I think it represents how he's taken another step towards becoming a brave warrior of the sea.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, question.
Yes.
Do you think if somebody brought in Luffy without the back of Usopp's head, they'd still get 30 million berries?
They'd probably give him 30 million. They'd probably give that bounty hunter 30 million. But if you brought in Luffy and the back of Usopp's head, they would go, oh my gosh, this is the guy who actually defeated the strongest fisherman Marine. We gotta give you 80 million berries. Mm-hmm. Because Usopp is really the strength of the Straw Hats. Without him, they would all just fall apart.
Yeah, definitely.
The other great thing is that because Luffy is Luffy, he's smiling like a giant idiot on the wanted poster, and the Marines are basically communicating with each other, and the HQ people are like, anyways, someone at some point goes, couldn't you have gotten a better picture? And as you pointed out to me off mic, yeah, you would want one of him looking threatening, because if someone gets this poster and they've never seen Luffy in their life, they're not going to believe he's actually a threat worth 30 million.
Yeah.
Also, the 30 million is very high. They mentioned that the average bounty in the East Blue was like 3 million or something like that. It was very low, and 30 as your starting bounty is just unheard of, because all the other Arlong, Dawn Krieg, Buggy had all been pirates for years. Luffy has just started his pirate journey last week, something like that.
And so Arlong was 20, and I think Dawn Krieg was 15, and Buggy was 10?
Oh, for their bounty. I thought you were talking about their ages. I was like, what are you talking about? What does that matter? Buggy, I think, was 10. I'm pretty sure that's right. 15 and 17 for Krieg and Kuro, I think. Someone was 15. Maybe Buggy was 15. And then 20 for... It doesn't matter.
Yes, Arlong was definitely 20, so Luffy is 10 million higher than Arlong.
Mm-hmm. All right, Curtis, we officially have a sponsor for today's episode.
Who is it?
All right, this is Hilga's Fruit Trading and Investment Company. Do you often find yourself that you have too many fruits in the house?
I do!
Of course you do. Everyone does. Here's the problem. You go to the supermarket and they have like 50 pounds of a particular fruit, be it honeydew, or apple, or cantaloupe, or grapes. And you buy 50 pounds and you get home and you realize that's too many pounds of any fruit.
So much fruit, Joel.
So much fruit. So you want to find a way to, maybe you throw it out. Maybe you feed it to the animals. Maybe you give it to the neighbors. But there's a better way. what you do is you come to Hilga's Fruit Trading and Investment Company, and what they will allow you to do is you bring them your excess fruits, and you can trade it to them. They will exchange any fruit for any other type of fruit. Isn't that amazing?
Any fruit, Joel?
Any fruit. And here's how it works. If you're not hungry for more fruit at this moment, you can also give them that fruit as an investment. And you can go onto their online app, you can get the app on your the online site, or there's a phone application, and you can check out how many fruits you've invested. And over time, you can watch as your investment grows.
How much could it grow, Joel?
It could grow by as much as 300% in 1 quarter annual summer. I don't know what those words are. I'm just reading the copy text on this text. I'm so excited to be sponsored by Hilga's Fruit Investment and Trading Company. But there is a note on here. Oranges need not apply. If you have oranges, don't invest them here. Go somewhere else.
Oranges suck. Get out of here.
Only apples, blueberries, strawberries, tomatoes. Are they fruits? I don't know. Cantaloupes, honeydews, blueberries, blackberries, pears, bananas, tangerines. Tangerines are different than oranges. Peaches.
Guava.
Apricots. Yes, all of those are fine, but no oranges.
Screw you, oranges.
Okay. Now, what did you think of these episodes? Feel free to rank the end of the Arlong fight as its own thing, and then the wrap-up as a second separate thing.
End of the fight was good. I would say it's a little bit... And then he punched him really hard, sort of resolution. And I was kind of like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like, there wasn't any sort of creative... It was just, he got really mad, and then he punched him harder.
Okay.
And then he won.
I happen to really like the fight. I don't think that Arlong's powers are as interesting as Kuro's or Buggy's, for example, and he doesn't have the weapons that Don Krieg does, but I don't know, he ended up being a broken record. Every single time Luffy tried to punch him, he'd be like, I'm a fishman and I am superior to you, and eventually Luffy said something along the lines of, like, I don't care about race relations, you hurt Nami, I'm gonna punch you. And I like that a little bit because it belies Luffy's nature. He doesn't care about politics. He doesn't care about how the government is run. He doesn't care about relations. He just cares about these are good people and they should be protected.
Yeah.
I can be the one who does that.
Yeah. And I mean, at least he had, like, an emotional reason to suddenly, like, tap into, like, his inner strength or something, right? Mm-hmm. So that it wasn't just out of the blue.
I will say that it was interesting because at the very beginning of the fight, the spectators, Nami, the villagers and whatnot, were accusing him of playing around, and he says, like, it's not like I'm playing around, I do want to fight him, but then when he breaks the sawtooth sword, there is a distinction there, and there's a reason behind it, like you said, but it is a little jarring.
Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of a common thing with a lot of the One Piece fights, both with him and Zoro specifically, where they tend to get resolved just by them suddenly being stronger, as opposed to anything really changing or something strategic happening.
I'd say, and again, this goes back to a theory that I think I've mentioned on the pod, but I think that one's determination and their will and their courage and their dream are all kind of like bleeding together. And so it's essentially the longer the bad guys spout off about how evil they are and the more they demonstrate that they're bad people, I think Luffy gets angrier. And he's not exactly the Hulk, but he becomes more determined to beat them. And that sounds like shonen bullcrap, but I think it works mostly in my opinion. I don't think that it's as bad as some other anime where people get 20 times as strong because they're angry. It's a gradual increase of, I'm going to try to punch him. I'm going to try to punch him twice. I'm going to try 3 punches and a kick. I'm going to try to just slam them into the ground. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what do you think about basically the wrap-up, the party, and the reunion, not the reunion, I keep calling it that, but the showing all the different people. It shows Kaya from Usopp's village, and it shows Kuro on his ship, and it shows Zeph.
I thought it was good. I mean, it's just reminding you of the people that they met, and that they can... Yeah, it's a good wrap-up. I mean, it's obviously... It's not filler, but it feels kind of filler-esque.
Okay.
Right? And not like a huge... There's not a lot of plot being driven forward by it.
Mm-hmm.
There's like kind of a kernel, and then they just expound upon it.
A common trope in shonen is that enemies become friends, and we've talked about it before. Dragon Ball Z does it, Yu Yu Hakusho did it, Naruto and Bleach had it. I think that at the end of this series, the friends that Luffy made along the way will play some kind of a role. I don't know how the people from East Blue are going to get to the Grand Line. Maybe they won't physically be in the same place, but I think that's what makes Luffy the protagonist of the story, rather than if we meet other pirates that are also kind of good guys, they don't make friends as much as Luffy. They don't have the same influence.
Maybe he will draw upon their power.
Oh,
their friendship.
He'll be fighting whoever the final boss is, and he'll be like, this one's for Nojiko, this one's for Pepper, and Onion, and Carrot. He's just gonna name every single character in the show.
It's gonna be like 5 episodes of him listing names.
He also doesn't remember names very well. This hasn't come up yet, but it will eventually. You'll realize that Luffy's even more of an idiot than he seems. So it'll be something like, this is for Melon Head, and Green Hair, and Purple Face.
So I was actually thinking more like, he gets to the end, he draws upon their power, and then it turns out he sucked all their life force out and put it into one punch.
Oh.
And so he wins the battle, but then everyone's dead.
At what cost?
And then,
I really like that.
Then he becomes evil.
Whoa. I don't think anyone's ever thought of an AU where Luffy was evil before. That's one of the most common fanfic ideas, is take the hero but make them evil. I'm not saying you're lazy. I liked the way that you talked about the energy going into... Oh, I hurt Curse's feelings.
Yes.
Your fanfic with Luffy in the My Little Pony universe was wonderful. It touched my heart. I like the fact that you realized that Luffy, of course, would be the element of laughter, like Pinkie Pie, and that they would be able to team up together in that way.
You're just saying that to make me feel better.
All right, so you said that these episodes felt filler-esque. Would you be confident classifying any of it as filler?
I wouldn't classify any of it as... I don't think I'd classify any of the 4 episodes as filler.
Any of the specific episodes? Okay.
Yeah. The first 2 are both ending the Arlong Park fight scene. The third one has some closure between Nami and her village.
Yeah, specifically Genzo, Bellamere, Nojiko, the 3 named members that we care about.
And then the 4th one establishes Luffy's spot on the world stage, and then also shows us that Shanks is still around.
That's true. And also, they talk about Logtown. Logtown could potentially be a filler town. That'd be a great way to introduce a filler episode, is they talk... But it's also the birthplace of Gold Roger, arguably the most important character in One Piece. Because without him, the rest of the story... So... I will tell you this, we're starting to get to the point where I almost called them the manga, but they're not. The anime is going to start padding out their episodes. None of these as a whole episode were filler. But for example, the part where Luffy took Arlong's teeth and put it in his own mouth, and then Arlong's like, you don't have the jaw strong enough to pierce my skin. I'm pretty sure that exchange was filler. Okay. The fact that the previously on One Piece where it showed parts of their fight, that was longer in this episode than it was in previous. Yeah. They're starting to get nervous, and they're starting to pad stuff out just a little bit. Yeah,
I noticed that the fight scene, and like the whole Arlong fight scene, not just the Arlong Luffy part, but all of it, this episode of the podcast and the last one, was longer, right? And like less happened in each individual anime episode.
I would mostly agree with that, yes. Yeah. And that's going to become an even bigger problem later. The last episode of the podcast had 3 important battles happen, and Luffy took out the fodder in the span of 4 episodes. I'd say that's pretty good. There's some fights that will be multiple episodes between just one person and one opponent.
But how much of the episodes are devoted to screaming Droll? That's what I really want to know. That's why I'm here.
You want more Luffy screams? You really enjoyed the part when he'd been bitten and he just was like, ah!
I want them screaming to, get themselves
to increase their
up.
strength.
Yes.
Oh man, Dragon Ball Z will always be in our hearts forever. Okay, let me pull up the regular conversation points that we cover before we move on to something more specific. Okay, so they mentioned Logtown.
Yes.
The town of the beginning and the town of the end. Obviously, that seems to be where they're going. They seem to be going to the Grand Line soon. They're now gung-ho for it, as opposed to before. Do you have any guesses what that town might be like?
Roguish.
Roguish?
Roguish.
Okay.
Just from the name.
Okay. Interesting.
So is the Loguetown just a translation thing? Or is it supposed to be Rogue Town?
Now, isn't that interesting? Okay, so when I was reading the manga, it was originally, I believe, Rogue Town when I first got there. I think. Nobody quote me on that. And then there was a lot of back and forth because in the Japanese language, the R's and the L's are very similar. I think it might I thought for the longest time it was supposed to be Rogue Town, and then they translated it to Logue Town to avoid getting the parents worked up. But I think Logue Town is the official translation.
Okay. So maybe it's Logish then.
Logish. Okay.
I don't know what that means.
What do you think the atmosphere is going to be like, and what kind of foods do you expect when you get off the ship? Mm-hmm. You're going to get hit by some scents. The sea salt's going to be in there, but beyond that, do you think there's going to be like the smell of cheeses, the smell of fruits, flowers?
Probably a lot of street food.
Okay.
Some octopus balls. I don't know what they're called.
Takoyaki?
Yes.
Okay.
That.
Okay. So there's going to be some takoyaki, and it's going to be very Logish. Possibly very close to Roguish. We're not sure. Maybe half the town is Roguish and half the town is Logish, and they're just in constant battle for dominance.
Yeah, the Logish people are yelling at the Roguish people. They're like, you guys are too roguish, and the Roguish people are like, I don't even know what Logish means. You guys need to come up with an actual word.
There's infighting on the Logish side as to what defines Logish. Okay. Do you have an MVP for these last 4 episodes?
I mean, the first 2 episodes is just Luffy beating up on Arlong. Mm-hmm. I guess I'm going to give it to Luffy, because even the last one we watched was about Luffy getting his wanted poster, right?
That's true.
So it's really about Luffy's ascension. The third episode we watched, so episode 44, it would be Nami, but that's just because it's Nami's wrap-up.
Yeah, you kind of need it to focus on the character who hasn't had her conclusion. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
I would say maybe Zoro, maybe Nami. Zoro because he gets woken up. He takes a nap after he gets thrown off the battlefield by Luffy. And when Luffy smashes Arlong Park, a rock just falls on his face. And his just immediate reaction is to sit up and be like, what in tarnation? And he attacked Nezumi, I think his name was, the Marine lieutenant or colonel who had he just bonks him on the back of the head with his, and so Full Body showed back up again. He's the womanizer who initially had beef with Sanji. He sees the Straw Hats and decides to take his frustration out on them, specifically so that he can get his rank back. He got demoted when he couldn't handle the Baratier stuff. And he fires a candle and Zoro just cuts it in half, which is pretty awesome.
And he yells at him for waking him up from his
nap. Yes. I think that is peak Zoro. At the same time, I wouldn't give it to him. I'd say that he's a candidate more so than Sanji and Usopp, who haven't really done anything in these 4 episodes. But Luffy takes it because I love that scene where he sees the pen and he breaks everything.
Come on, you other 2. Step it up.
When we have 5 characters and only 20 minutes per episode, we need all of you to do something. You each get 4 minutes to shine. Also, every episode you need a moment to shine. So even if you took out someone in the last episode, this episode you need to find a new opponent and take them out.
Yeah. Past performance does not matter.
Only
what have you
the
done
current.
For me lately? We are a ruthless podcast, but fair.
So, did you feel like anything was particularly foreshadowed in these episodes?
You didn't ask me that on the last episode, I just realized.
Oh, my bad.
That's okay.
The last episode was mostly just fighting. I would be pretty comfortable saying I don't think there was any.
I thought somebody mentioned something. I was like, oh, that was foreshadowing.
Of course, the one time you notice it is the one time. Or the one time I failed to ask you is the one time you can fib about you think that you found something.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if Lowtown counts. Because they explicitly say, we're going to Lowtown next episode.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing! I mean, we got the wanted poster. Oh, the whole Marine thing.
Oh,
so
yes.
When they're establishing his bounty and his bounty level, it shows you like this council of Marine officers all sitting down, like eating food and drinking stuff.
Yeah, and like 2 rows down an aisle, basically sitting across from each other.
So I mean, it was our first glimpse at like the Navy hierarchy. This also, we got to see Shanks again, and apparently Mihawk knows him because they end up drinking together. I'm trying to think. Was there anything else going on? There was something on the island.
On Nami's island?
Yeah, that had to do with, like, somebody mentioned... this was either in these 4 or the last 4. I don't remember if it was with one of the maps she drew, or someone mentioned somewhere offhand.
Nothing's coming to mind for me. I'm sorry that I'm failing you.
I mean... This isn't foreshadowing, it's just world building. Actually, a lot of this is just
world building is good too. If it's world building that hasn't been established before and you think might get explored, I would count that under the banner of...
Okay. So, in terms of world building, we learn more about the Grand Line, and that you have to access it through one of the rivers. You can't just go straight there. They don't explain why, because Luffy interrupts Nami when she's trying to explain, and then there's a ship that goes by, those full bodies, and then they have to deal with that. And
things just got too crazy for them to follow through, and I may have misspoken when I was trying to explain. They're not rivers exactly, but that's what they look like on maps. It's 4 lines coming from each of the seas, but they have to go through something called Reverse Mountain, which is also foreshadowing, spoiler alert, because we don't know what that is yet.
Yeah.
So they're going to be explored. There is nothing in here that's going to come back in 600 episodes, I don't think. I have to ask, because the one episode where there's something heavily foreshadowed, something very important is foreshadowed, that can't be the only time I ask, because that would give away the secret.
Okay, we'll just call this from now on foreshadowing / world building.
I will try to remember that.
I will.
Okay.
Don't worry, Joel.
Perfect. Okay, so now those are the kind of the general questions that we like to ask, and now we can get into more specific stuff. So, I wrote down some notes this time. Okay, I do want to point this out. I thought this was really interesting. So, Arlong says that the maps are his treasure when Luffy's in the room of Nami's maps. But he didn't make them of his own volition, and he didn't allow her to make them of her own free will. He threatened to kill the villagers when he found her trying to create a fake sea map, and he got really upset with her. I just want to point out that he's a real bad bloke. He's a real bad guy.
Yes, he's a bad bloke, Joel. Yeah, I mean, I was debating this, and like, I guess so all of the Straw Hats, their treasure, quote unquote, is almost like a more personal thing, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas so far the bad guys, their treasure has been some form of like object that they took from someone, right?
Yep.
So like, Buggy's treasure was actual treasure that he stole from people. Kuro's treasure would have been taking money and stuff from Kaya. I'm missing. I skipped somebody. Don
Krieg? Oh no, Actan Morgan was technically before that.
Oh well, yeah, but his treasure was
status, basically.
Yeah. I don't know if I can say jackass.
You've now said it twice. Good job.
Yeah. Okay. Censor me, Joel. I are you. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, so yeah, his was status. Don Krieg, his treasure was blowing things up and poison gas. and then now we've got
Arlong.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know what I was going to say. It wasn't going to be Arlong, though.
Mr. Flippity Floobity.
Yes.
We haven't gotten to him yet. I'm sorry. I spoiled that piece of information. Joel. Mr. Flibbity Floobity who ate the flop fruit. It allows him to flop around and dodge attacks perfectly.
So it's just Magikarp.
Yeah.
Except better. A useful splash.
Yeah.
So yeah, then Arlong, he just steals the maps from Nami. Or I guess he abducts a small child and forces them into slave labor to make maps for him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about this Shanks-Mihawk connection. Mihawk shows up on an island, and he's walking around, and it's Shanks who says, "Are you here to settle our differences or settle the score?" type of thing, and Mihawk goes, "No, not since you lost your left arm," which that was 8 years ago. So it's interesting. Have they not seen each other at all in 8 years, I guess?
I guess so.
But...
Well, no, they must have seen him afterwards because he told him stories about a young boy from that one island, right?
That's true. Okay, so that was mostly just exposition to us, the readers, or the listeners, the viewers, whatever.
Yeah.
But what's going on with that? Mihawk is the strongest swordsman in the world. Do you think that they fought? And do you think that Shanks won? If Mihawk showed up to settle the score, I think that means that Shanks is winning, right? Gotta be.
Did he phrase it that way?
I thought he did.
Yeah, if he said it that way, then yes, that would mean Shanks would have had to win, which probably means I'm assuming he didn't fight him with the sword.
Yeah, you can't be the best swordsman in the world if someone is beating you with their sword.
Yes. So... But yeah, he probably won somehow.
Wait, what if it's just a PR stunt? What if the best swordsman in the world is just an unofficial title and Mihawk just had better lawyers who were distributing posters and he got word of mouth? Hey, have you heard about that guy? Mihawk, he's really strong.
He's a good self-promoter.
Yeah, he's good. He's just not the best. And he beat out the other 12 candidates by.
That's what's gonna happen is Zoro's gonna get really good, and then he's gonna go to Mihawk. He's like, "You've become a great swordsman. Now I must teach you about publicity."
I thought you were gonna say, "Now you have to get ready for Floppity Doppity," or whatever I called him, the true master swordsman.
Flippity flop.
There we go.
I don't remember what his name was.
Good job. But what do you think the connection is behind these two rival figures?
I kind of have the feeling that a lot of the people in the Grand Line, I mean, they probably don't all like each other, but some of them are probably have like some degree of friendly rivalry, right?
Okay.
Like, they have conflicting goals, but they also like kind of respect one another to some degree, right?
I'd agree with that, and I believe that, you know, the show, if you think about it, eventually it kind of becomes about connections between different groups of people, and if you are the strongest swordsman in the world, and you are trying to explore the world, I think that's how Shanks phrased what he wanted to do in a buggy flashback episode. But anyways, they've probably crossed paths before. I'm curious to know how young they met and exactly how the rivalry developed, how friendly or unfriendly it is. They shared drinks together, so they can't be worst enemies.
Do you know what it probably was?
What?
Shanks, exploring the world. He comes upon an island. He needs somewhere to stay that night, right?
Okay.
Meets Mihawk in the marketplace in the village, right?
Sure.
He tells Mihawk, "Hey, I don't got nowhere to stay tonight." And Mihawk goes, "Mihawk as Two Hawk."
I need a break. I need that. I really, whenever talks. Okay, let me back this up. I am somewhat familiar with fanfiction a little bit. I don't read it quite as much as some people do. But my impression, and I think a lot of people's general impression of fanfiction, is that it very often turns romantic in nature. Mm-hmm. And so when you started coming up with a what-if scenario, I basically was thinking to myself, this is a narrative of vocal fanfiction. And so when you said they meet at the supermarket, I'm like, that's how some people start their story about how they met their wives.
You gave me a look, and I was like, okay, he's misreading this. I'm okay with this.
Okay.
It was really just a setup so I could make the Mikasa as Tsukasa.
I know your humor. I know what lengths you'll go to for your puns. Anyways. Okay, so you're just going to say that there basically are two people, Mihawk and Shanks, are two people who are just traveling the world and they've crossed paths.
Yeah, I'm sure sometimes they work together, sometimes they worked against each other, but, you know, in the end, they've kind of got like a... you know how, like, you'll see people who, like, a lot of times will be in conflict with one another, but they still have, like, a good kind of, like, buddy relationship when they're punched out?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's a Looney Tunes episode where that happens. There's a hunter and some animal that he's hunting, and then at the end of the day, they go both punch out of work.
And they're friends.
Yeah, and they go get a drink or something.
That's perfect. The thing about speculating about Mihawks and Shanks is that they're both obviously very important figures. They are the sort of people who are going to change the history of the One Piece world, but we as viewers don't know much about him, right? We don't know anything about Shanks' goals other than he apparently wants to travel, and Mihawk is the strongest swordsman, but is being the strongest swordsman his actual goal, or is it a means to something else? You know, someone can become strong because they want to become the Pirate King, they can become strong because they want to protect their homeland, they can become strong because they want to steal treasure. I don't know. We still, even in the manga to this day, don't quite know much about those two, but I think their relationship will be very interesting.
Mihawk wants to become stronger so he can steal more hawks for himself. Shanks wants to explore the world so he can find more people to shank.
Maybe Shanks one time accidentally shanked a hawk. And that's what caused the great rivalry.
Yeah, that's it. Hawk shanking. Don't do it, kids.
They both went to high school together, and they had Algebra 2 together, and there was a pretty girl, and they both wanted to date her, and they kept sabotaging each other until eventually she got bored of their antics and started going out with... Oh, we don't know that many people in the One Piece world. Koshiro, the swordsman, who ended up being the father of Kawina. And to this day, they both still blame each other for the loss of the loss of the woman that they loved.
I could see that. Why Algebra 2?
What?
Why Algebra 2?
I don't know. That's just the first class that sprang to mind.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on to some of the world building that we did get that we didn't...
Some of the real world building and not us building our fake fanfic world.
Well, when you said real world building, I thought you meant building in the real world. And so we got different levels here.
Okay, so some of the
One Piece world building from Oda himself.
Yes.
We got introduced to two new... I don't want to say new creatures, but two interesting things from the One Piece world.
Yes.
We got... wow, I forgot. Snails. We got snails that allow people to communicate between distances of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to describe how you remember the scene?
Yes. So, imagine you have like an old World War II radio system, but also a fax machine attached to it. And then those machines have wires, and they attach to a snail. It's about the size of a person's head. And then that's it. When you talk into your radio, and on the other side, the snail's mouth moves, and your voice comes out of it.
Yes. Not only that, you've only seen two of them so far, so this will become more evident as you meet more, if you see more people communicating via these creatures. They're called Den Mushis, by the way. I don't know if that's a pun. I don't know if mushi or den mean something in Japanese. I only know that phrase. But they're communication snails, and the features on the snail on the receiving end look like the person sending the message. So, for example, if Shanks, for example, had a snail, it would very likely have red hair. Shanks has scars over one of his eyes. His snail that was receiving his voice would have a scar on that eye. If someone were blind, the eyes would look blind and stuff like that. And when they get angry or happy or sad, when they show emotion, the snail's face on the other end shows that same emotion, and it is great and it is wonderful. There's a character, small spoilers ahead, plug your ears for the next 15 seconds if you don't like spoilers.
I'm not listening.
I'm not listening. Curtis, there's eventually a character you meet who you meet via Den Mushi before you meet them. So you're able to determine certain aspects of their features, but not what they actually look like. Yeah. And then when they show up, you go, oh yeah, I see the resemblance between them and their snail.
Do they have a snail face? They're just a snail on a human body.
I mean, maybe. Okay. The other thing that we got introduced to, it's a new concept to us in the One Piece world, is Nami gets her newspaper delivered, as you said, by seagull. But that, I don't know if it's a specific species of bird, if it's a subspecies of seagull, or if they're just specially trained, and any seagulls that receive this training gets a special name, but they're called newsku.
Okay.
News because they deliver the news, and coo because that's the sound that birds make. And they apparently are smart enough to be able to receive payment for the newspapers they deliver, and they just kind of go around looking for ships to ship. That's fascinating. That's literally all I have to say about it. Do you have any thoughts about the news organization that runs the news coup?
I mean, you could end up getting, like, really old newspapers.
Yeah, absolutely. How long does it take them to leave? How long does it take for them to get back? Do people who are further away get older news? And technology's really helped with that stuff. A long time back in the day, you wouldn't know if your troops that you sent off to war had won or lost, and you'd have to have carriers come back and forth. But when you're on the ship, it's hard to tell. You'd have to have... So there's a whole world to how letters are sent. We don't get more details about them. We don't really care, but there is more thought into it than...
I am curious how the snails work, if it's only two-way communication, or if you can make it like an open broadcast that other people can pick up. Because if it's the second one, I mean, then the question is, how expensive are these snail systems? Because if they're not that expensive, why do we even have, like... I mean, I guess newspapers are useful, but you could also get more real-time updates just by, like, broadcasting a snail signal.
That is interesting. Can you turn them off? If you operate them like a radio, would you have the ability to opt out? Or would it just be playing 24/7 and you're trying to go to sleep? You're like, I don't care about the economic situation of Syrup Village, please.
I would imagine there'd be like an on-off switch and a dial, like a radio.
Okay.
I just imagine it's a radio run by snail power.
Yep, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. We don't get much about the Den Mushies. We've gotten one or two little pieces about their capabilities and such, but basically you can think of them as not futuristic pieces of technology, right? They're not more advanced than what we have in our world, but they do substitute for things that we have here.
It is kind of a weird, like, dissonance, because you have all these sailing ships, and then you have somewhat sophisticated electronics, right? I mean, not like nothing. It's all like pre-1950s stuff, but
right.
it's there. It's kind of like, oh, I mean, like I'm having a. You guess you advanced in some areas, not in others, but
yeah, if you asked Oda, I'm sure he'd be able to explain. I'm sure that the fact that going to sea is dangerous means that certain islands are isolated and they don't get technological advances. I think Oda plays a little hard and fast with the rules of what technology exists. At the same time, I personally don't care.
Yeah.
So long as the story's interesting and nothing ever breaks. You don't run into a situation where you go, well, if they had used the Den Mushies, then they could have done this or that or this.
As long as you're consistent.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, let's go back to the Marines that you were talking about.
Yes.
In the meeting room when they were discussing that Luffy is a dangerous pirate who needs a high bounty because he represents such a threat. These officers were all wearing capes.
Capes or jackets?
I'm sorry, that's exactly. They were wearing jackets that went over their back, over their shoulders. They had sleeves. None of them were wearing their sleeves. And they all had the what's the writing language called? The
kanji.
Kanji, thank you. The kanji for justice written on them.
Oh, is that what that means?
I believe so.
I assumed it was Navy, but okay, justice, that makes sense.
The subtitle said justice.
Oh, okay.
And I think there's a certain rank that you can get to when you might have a different word written on your back, but it might always be justice. We'll explore that later. But did you notice anything interesting about those jackets?
Wait, didn't you just say they don't use the sleeves?
Oh, yeah, okay. I was trying to engage in a two-way conversation here.
So, Joel.
Yes.
Why do they all feel the need not to use the sleeves?
I think it's a cool thing. I think that people who don't have their sleeves through it look cooler.
So then why build the sleeves? I feel like that's all, over the size of your entire navy. That's a lot of material.
It's a lot of extra cloth.
You're wasting cloth at that point. Just make capes. You don't need the sleeves. Just make capes.
It's a good question. Maybe there's some people who wear the sleeves, and we just haven't met them yet. This is the first episode we've ever seen these jacket capes.
That's true.
Would you like to know the in-universe reason that the jackets don't fall off despite them not using the sleeves?
Yes, Joel.
Okay. It's because not the capes, the jackets represent justice. And in the eyes of the Marines, justice can never fall. So it stays on their shoulders. That is word of Oda confirmed. The creator of the universe has said.
You know what?
What?
If your cape is a symbol of justice to you,
wear it.
You don't want it to fall. Either do one of two things. Put your arms through the sleeves so they won't fall, or wear a chain so it won't fall. It doesn't fall. It doesn't not fall because you don't want it to fall. That's not the way the world works.
That is the way One Piece works. Oda said so.
Oda's wrong.
Wow. That's your first offense, buddy. You only get 3. No, your first offense was several episodes ago, attributing Luke kissing Leia to episode 4 of the podcast of episode 4 of Star Wars.
Now. But that's a knock on my Star Wars nerd.
Oh, okay.
That's not a knock on
your ability to
One Piece. One Piece. This is the first offense.
Okay. Okay, absolutely.
But it's worrying me that I've already gotten one offense from Star Wars and one offense from One Piece in such a short time frame.
We haven't even made out of East Blue yet. There's much more story to explore.
How many other people can I offend, Joel?
Okay, well, on the episode where we discussed it was okay to talk about references, I did mix Star Wars and Star Trek, which you seem to think was a grave offense.
Well, to some people.
Neither of them take place on Earth, so I don't see why
it's only a playful offense to me. Actually, Star Trek does take place on Earth sometimes.
I guess that's true.
And if you take the Star Wars Indiana Jones crossover comic...
We are getting off track. Maybe we can move that to a bonus episode of the podcast. Okay. Last thing that I can think of, the last thing I wrote down in my notes. The newspaper goes out with Luffy's wanted poster. Mm-hmm. We see Zeph, we see Kuro, we see Kaya. Kuro, by the way, is back on the pirate ship, and he's looking pretty sad. Mm-hmm. It's almost like all the people who opposed Luffy are now in worse situations for it, and the people who liked Luffy are now in better situations because of it.
Yep.
Stay out of his way. Or don't be a bad person. Whichever of those two you think is more appropriate.
Well, no, we have to see if there's somebody who's a good person who doesn't stay out of his way and see what their fate is.
Okay, that's the control? Anyway, I'm getting distracted. One of the places that gets Luffy's poster is Party's Bar. I really thought it was supposed to be Patty's Bar, but I looked it up and apparently it was a mistranslation. It doesn't matter. That's the place where Luffy was drinking juice and talking with Shanks. That's the place where he ate the gum fruit. And in there is the old man of the village, who his name is Woodslap. I don't know if they've ever said his name out loud. If they have, I've missed it. I looked it up. Mr. Lampshade. But he's looking at this newspaper, this wanted poster, and he's like, why are they celebrating Luffy's success? He's a pirate. Success for a pirate means more lawlessness in the world. It means he's being a bad person. And Makino, the girl who works at the bar, says, well, it's his dream. And Woodslap says, dream? Or is it fate? And do you have any thoughts? And you are mandated to have a thought, because this is a podcast where we discuss things. So give me your best shot.
Is he really into the fate system? The tabletop game?
I don't know if they have the tabletop fate system in the One Piece world.
I don't know. You guys, so we were watching the episode, and that came up on the screen, and Joel had a look on his face and was like, what, Joel? What is it? And he wouldn't tell me. There's something going on, and I don't know what it is.
Well, let's work backwards. What does the word fate mean to you? How would you use it as a writer?
Fate implies a lack of agency amongst your character. It's destiny, right?
Okay.
I'm actually surprised they didn't use the word destiny, because that also starts with the D.
Maybe. We've pointed out before that we turn on the subtitles, and sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different. And in this case, they did use the word dream and the word fate specifically. Mm-hmm. So I think you're right that if the Japanese had said, if the sub had said destiny or the other one hadn't.
I would say I guess there's a kind of a different connotation for fate versus destiny. Destiny is kind of like I'd say fate tends to have a more negative connotation to it.
Okay. Interesting.
Like destiny is maybe this is just me, but I feel like usually when I think of destiny, it's like you're bound for good things, and fate's like I'm leaving you to your fate sort of thing.
Okay. Interesting.
But fate is just like whatever might befall you, right?
Okay. I can't tell you when. I don't remember. So there's there's the superficial arc. That's the wrong word. But you have the arcs like where Luffy fights Arlong. You have the fight where Luffy beats Don Craig. You have the arc where they go to Logtown. And then you have the world building bits, the foreshadowing bits, the interesting larger story bits. And him saying, dreams or fate, that will get explored later. I guarantee it. And when it comes up, we can discuss it.
Okay.
But that is one single, yes, I'm about to say piece. That's the name of the anime. But it's only one part of the puzzle. And eventually, you will start to get more parts. And I think a good author will be able to foreshadow something in such a way that you're able to figure it out just before it happens. If you're able to figure it out as soon as you open the first page, that's bad. That means you gave away too much information. And if even after you've revealed it, people go, wait, what? That came out of nowhere. That's also a bad sign. So you need to give people little sprinkles of the truth and then let them get close to the correct answer and see where it goes.
I will say, if you hadn't pointed it out to me, I would have said, "Oh, that's just filler dialogue." It doesn't say because they don't. It's not marked as important in the show. It's we're going to each of the islands they all came from, and here's Luffy's island, and some old man who's disgruntled with him being a criminal is like, "It's not his dream; it's just his fate to be a criminal." Like it's not. It doesn't strike me as important. I think it's only important, like in hindsight.
Okay, that I could completely agree with that. Let me ask you another leading question, and I expect to be met by silence. How would you say someone would go around determining someone else's fate? Do you think that this man can read tarot cards? Do you think that an oracle came through years and years ago? Like, where is he getting an idea of what Luffy's fate might be?
He's got a bag of bones.
Okay.
And he just goes, he casts the bones and then he reads the bones.
That's why he was rubbing his chin when he was thinking about dreams and fate, because your chin is itself part of a bone. He was going to use his jawbone to tell one last fate.
Yeah, that's what he's going to do, Joel.
Don't look at me like I'm crazy. I'm just trying to give you hints. I'm trying to help you see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is a much bigger picture.
It's the size of a man's jaw? Is that the bigger picture? The bigger picture is one man's jaw bone.
Okay, so we are clearly running out of steam. I think that we've exhausted all the things that we want to talk about, but I will turn it to you. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't?
No, we hit it all. We talked about a lot of stuff.
Well, let me see. How long is this episode going to be? It's only an hour long so far. That's not the worst possible thing.
No, I mean, usually when we edit it, it gets cut down, I think.
A bit, yes. So. Okay, so we've started a new tradition, and when I say we, I mean I've started a new tradition of trying to get people excited about upcoming arcs. Mm-hmm. So we already know that we're going to Logtown, and I'm going to need a second to collect my thoughts, but I'll be back, and for you people listening, it'll feel like no time at all through the magic of editing. Logtown. It's a town full of history, a town full of mystery, a town that speaks of one's destiny. Connections have been made between the various members of the Straw Hats. Connections have been made with other members of the community, of the world at large. Those forces are beginning to collide. New enemies will appear. New allies will appear. Luffy climbs atop a tower, and his life, it flashes before his eyes. He smiles in his final moments. A fateful moment. So how was that, Curtis? Are you enticed? I don't know if that was my strongest one I've done yet. You're muted.
Let me come up to the mic here.
How do you feel about that?
Nah.
Nah?
Yeah.
Is it because I used the word fate?
I'm just I'm just really tired, man. We've watched 8 episodes, recorded 2 episodes. We're going to record another episode.
A bonus episode for her patron.
Bonus
patrons.
episode.
Bonus episode.
No, it was good.
Okay.
It was good. It was like you were drawing me into the story.
There are many arcs that are very good, and I can tell you basically beat for beat what happens. Logue Town is a little bit of an exception to that, and you'll see what I mean when we actually get into it, but it will be very interesting to see how you like it. And okay, I think that just about does it for everything, so Curtis, sign us off. I usually just say, outro goes here, thanks for listening.
Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next time. Outro goes here. Luffy and Arlong are getting a divorce. And Luffy's tossing all of Arlong's junk out of the house.
So ends the next leg of the King of the What Now adventure. We're sad to see you go, but we'll be here next week. If you crave some social interaction with us in the meantime, you can find us on all sorts of different media. We have Gmail, Patreon, and Tumblr. All of those are King of the What Pod. King of the What Pod at gmail.com, patreon.com/King of the What Pod, kingofthewhatpod.tumblr.com. Our Twitter handlers are a little bit different. You can reach me at KOTWN_pod.
And you can contact me, Curtis, at Pirate Co-host. Also, please take a moment to rate and review our podcast on whatever platform you're using to listen. Not only will this help others find the podcast, but your constructive feedback will help us improve the show as we go.
Thanks so much for giving us a listen. Until next time, follow your dreams and protect your treasure.
Remember, it doesn't need to be literal treasure.